I want a sandwich. Now. Oh, sandwich wench. Yo, wench. Sandwich. Now. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. Sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. A sandwich. A sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. Sandwich. I'm going to need a sandwich. A sandwich. A sandwich. Oh, sandwich wench. I want a sandwich. Sandwich.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another political recap stream, the first this year? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Here on the Moisky Live channel, talking about some stoof, joining me to talk about some stoof, obvious stoof, the thumbnail give it away pretty much straight away, is Trups. Say hello, Trups.
Hello, Trups. I don't have a drink with me because I already had enough soda today. I still have a soda, I don't have it to open.
I got you, bro. I have a cork ready.
Nice. You have a cork.
Well,
Yes,
I've
cork,
got a
cork.
bottle of Glenmorangie.
Cork.
Yeah. Open Glenmorangie box is remarkably awkward. Oh, that's disappointing. That was, that'll do. It'll have. It's a very old cork. It's a very,
yes.
very old bottle of mine. Okay.
Indeed.
Hello, everyone in the chat. Hope you're well. Obviously, we've got one subject in mind today, but we'll get to that soon. How has Trups' New Year been so far?
My New Year has been relatively, I guess, uninteresting, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's nothing necessarily to write home about. Like, New Year happened. Woo!
Yeah, I get that. I pretty much, I was asleep before midnight anyway. And it's just been, I had headaches the first 2 days and then just got back on with my job.
Cursory news, though, about New Year's. Japan really had a shitty time at the start of this New Year, didn't they?
Yes, I'd heard about, was it an earthquake or a tsunami?
Earthquake, and I don't know if the tsunami actually ended up happening or not. I think they had tsunami warnings.
Yeah, I'd
I don't know if
heard
that
about the
actually
warnings. I didn't know if it happened. I know that a few people didn't have New Year's celebrations because the weather got so bad. I spelled released in the title wrong. That's clever. I've updated that. It's been
You're just doing it so that other people come in just to correct you.
You know what? Engagement is engagement, and I'm okay with that. Hello Chaos, hello K-Shell, Chav, hello Leona, hello Violet. If anyone else would like to say hello in the YouTube chat, do say so. For those who are interested, this will be on, and Ola, hi. We'll be uploading this to Spotify and to Rumble tomorrow. Do follow us on Rumble. We seem to do reasonably well. We get at least double-digit views. That's good news, at least.
Woo, double.
Yeah, I know, right? This topic might actually do better over there anyway, because YouTube will demonetize this one.
I was going to say, you're not going to get shit over here.
Oh, I know that. That's a given. Hello, Olivia. Hope you're well. It's been a very quiet week here, though, personally. I've just sort of cracked on with just... it's not Christmas anymore, so I don't have to be so obsessed with obsessed with my job, but not in the sense of trying to make as much money as possible.
Right, it doesn't have to be neurotic.
Yes, and also I tried making videos in my cabin, but because I had headaches for 2 straight days, that didn't work. The weather did not help either, because I couldn't get to my cabin. Doesn't help that there's
Snow?
No, horrendous rain and wind. It was just torrential. The issue I have is there is no path on the grass to my cabin yet. That's a job for this year. Unfortunately, I can't, and because of the dogs. No, I can't make it's just too slippery.
Gravel path.
I want to do that. One of my sisters wants to put decking, and I'm like, no. 'Cause it's the garden. First of all, the garden at the back where my cabin is higher than the ground where the house is. It's an elevation. Why put wood there?
Yeah,
Just
no. Just do gravel path.
Let me just do a gravel path. Simples. Dogs pee on it. I don't care. I don't have to care. Cats pee on it. I don't care. And pooping is easier to deal with. To be honest, it's easier to deal with. All right. I know this is not a topic people want to hear, but how about
gravel is cheaper.
Exactly, it is. Another subject. If people are interested, I've been playing a lot of video games this week and playing on my guitar. It's been nice to do things for me that not involving YouTube.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad that the things that you do for you are nicer than our main topic today.
Yeah. I have for you in the chat. If you're interested, I'm going to post a link to it in the chat, but I'm going to tiny URL it so YouTube don't completely screw me over.
Oh yes.
I'll thank you, browser, for checking to see if a tiny URL is secure. But yes, I'll put it in the chat. It's all 943 pages, even though there's actually more because more has been released since.
Yeah.
I'll put the first list for those who are curious. Do go give it a look. It is quite. I'm going to pin it as well because I think it's quite important. Why can't I pin it? Are you taking the piss out of me, YouTube? I can't click.
I see it.
It's not that I can't click on it because the stupid heart emoji crap in the corner is obscuring it, so I can't actually pin my own comment.
Oh. Well, hang on. Maybe I can.
There you go. No, I've got it now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was bull.
But before we get into that, I do want to mention so we have obviously a election year coming up, right?
Yes.
So the media came out swinging this year in a very interesting and odd way. So on the day that all the documents were released, there were two other news stories apparently that came out that were of interest. One of them was an incident in a school in Iowa, which I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
It was a 17-year-old who decided that bad things should happen in a school, and that was terrible. It was tragic. Mm-hmm. The other thing, which was so that happened, and then of course the Epstein documents. But that was not the story that last night took center stage on MSNBC. No. The center stage topic was of Trump's business got at least $7.8 million in foreign payments during his presidency.
Okay, so quick thing. I hear a lot of people argue that X% of the media is controlled by conservatives. But then when you're hearing about what is clearly the most important discussion, or comparative, it certainly is more important, you hear silence from those that are not conservative. That makes people think would have made it seem like oh shit, I've just lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, it would make it seem like
media controlled.
Right, it would make it seem like this level of transparency and open discussion is only a conservative when it suits. Unless it's shitting on conservatives, and then it's all completely. I don't care for this because it seems so stupid. And hello, everyone in the chat. I do apologize for not saying hello to everyone. And yes, thank you, Gordon, for the treats they arrived today, and the pics are amazing. I sent some swag. It's great.
Swag.
But yes, I find I don't like the idea that discussing an issue like this, and it's a big issue, is a conservative thing. And yet, at the same time, I hear people say that X% of who was it? I've seen this number on Twitter. It's like 90-something% of the media is controlled by conservatives.
I guess it depends on how far you're looking, because if you're talking about it depends on the metric. Because if you're thinking of like worldwide, conservatives will control the worldwide media because you have anything from Sky News Australia.
We also have countries like Russia and China who are
countries like the Middle East. Al Jazeera is definitely a conservative thing. It's just conservative in their way, right?
I think that might be the blanket statement, and then I find in this instance it's not about who controls it, it's about who's willing to discuss those topics. Because if you think that talking about those donations is more important than the released documents, you don't understand the nature of people. Because people online have been for days bleating on about this, and more has come out. I've seen the memes of Boogie being on it. It was hilarious.
Well, it's actually even funnier because they're not donations. They are literally costs incurred by people utilizing his hotels.
Oh, well, in that case, then my apologies. Context is key, and we agreed on this before the stream. Actually, it's vitally important. Not that some will care. It's to frame an argument. I'm sure they'll try and sue him for that and fine him for it as well.
They actually are, tempted. Basically, so the argument was that Trump refused to divest himself from his business when he became president. What he instead did was he put all of his businesses into a trust and then handed those off to his sons. Said, "While I'm president, I'm not going to deal with anything regarding my business. That's going to be my son's job. Hopefully, when I come back in 8 years." Then everything's going to be perfectly fine. Because, yes, he did presume that he was going to win a second term.
I'll be honest, we thought he was going to win as well.
True.
And I'll say it again, because when we've said it a few times since, the first thing we said when we came back after the election was, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, right? Hello?
How do we do this? In fact, I believe that's what we started with. Because we were very confused.
Yeah. It was like, how did this work?
Yeah, we're still confused, to be honest. But you know what? He got more votes than Obama ever did, and that's great. That's just what you needed. Completely.
But yeah, so they had basically accounted for a whole bunch of people, and they only could look at 20 countries because this got hung up somewhere between the Democrat Oversight Committee and the Republican Oversight Committee, where basically they looked at it and they were able to, with receipts, find that 7.8 million dollars came from foreign individuals. Now, they are conflating this with foreign governments paying Trump.
That's just the laziness that we are used to at this point. Any excuse to frame an argument to continually try and find a way to convict him. Can you imagine trying to convict someone because a foreigner, and I'm using that word, I really don't like that word, a foreigner stayed in your hotel. He wasn't in charge of his business, and so the thing is, based on the party line voting, they'd vote to do it anyway. And
it's really funny because they are very, I'll notice that certain news agencies are very cautious to write things differently than are being said. So MSNBC is doing the conflation between payments from foreign governments, saying that a Article 1, Section 4, something like that. The president may not basically take in gifts from foreign governments.
Okay.
I'm reading right here from MSNBC, which is citing Reuters. Businesses tied to Republican former U.S. President Donald Trump received at least $7.8 million in foreign payments from 20 countries during his 4 years in the White House.
So here's the thing. Did he receive it, or did the trust receive it?
Very good question. You see, that's also part of the confusion. They are conflating those two because Trump Business, Trump Org, is directly connected to Trump himself, and they are, of course, ignoring that fine detail as well.
That sounds typically selective and cliche at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And as pointed out in the chat, I do tend to agree that those who operate in high office, although I'm going to alter it slightly, if you have second jobs or vested interests elsewhere, if you're in government, I don't think you should be allowed to do that. And I mean serving in the cabinet or in high office in some manner. I think if you're just a backbencher, I don't really give a crap because you're there because you're just filling a seat in Parliament, that is. But I do understand that MPs are paid a really good salary, and their expenses are, in my country, their expenses can be phenomenal. Like, ridiculous. They can pay for a second home if it's not the one in their constituency, if they're using it in London. Pay for their rent, their mortgage, which is just bonkers to me. But that's what they can claim. I do agree at the same time, though, that perhaps there should be greater restrictions on that. But if you're serving in office, I don't think you should have any. You shouldn't be you shouldn't have private interest. You shouldn't be operating other businesses when your job is on a national level. It's just too much. But then it gets more complicated, I guess.
Now, what was very interesting, is one could argue that that's a valid point. Orla's comment saying that they should not be able to operate their own business. That's fair. So let's go back in time real quick. Jimmy Carter used to own a peanut farm before he became president in 1977. Carter put his business, including his peanut farm, into a blind trust before taking office.
Good man.
Okay.
So far.
So he did not sell it until after he left office.
Did the value go up?
I'm not sure, but he sold it 4 years later.
Okay. Well, yeah, he was a one-term president, like his successor, I believe.
Apparently, Carter's business suffered significantly while he was in president.
No, hang on. Carter. It wasn't Carter and then freaking Bush, was it? It was somebody else, wasn't it?
Now, the difference between the trust was that he basically put it into a blind trust that was owned by an Atlanta law firm, as opposed to keeping it within his family.
Was it Reagan that succeeded Carter, just to be clear? Because it was, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Sorry, I misspoke. I thought it was Bush after him. I just want to correct myself. Bush was after Reagan. He was a one-term president.
Yeah. Now, the difference between the trust that went into the sons is that it wasn't blind. The blind trust that went to a law firm was. So one could argue that because he intentionally chose his businesses like successors, that there may have been an issue.
Right.
I think that's just all. I think that we're getting into the splitting of hairs. Did President Donald Trump, did he own and operate the business? No. Did his sons? Yeah, it was a family business.
Well, of course it was a family business. It was the money originally for the first business came from his dad, didn't it?
Yes.
Shocker.
So the claim that some had made when this original issue, because this is a 2016 issue that they're bringing up again, because they actually were able to finalize some of the investigation.
Right.
This information, him putting it into a trust, is not unusual. Is not outside of other actions taken by other people. I bet you if I went back in time even further, let me see, Thomas Jefferson business while president.
Strip club, I bet.
Well, so he did a lot of things in general.
Did he own slaves or not?
He did, but one of the things was that he had a mercantile business.
What?
Thomas Jefferson was a very, very successful merchant.
Oh, mercantile. I thought you said mercantile. I was very confused.
Mercantile is the word.
Is it?
M-E... Yeah, this word.
I hear merkin. I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, that's
I've
merchant.
I've never known that word. My apologies. Very well.
But I'm curious because now I'll look it up later. But to see if he also divested from his business or he just put it to somebody else. But long story short, not weird, but apparently more important for MSNBC to handle this more important for them to handle this information rather than information about a Iowa school incident or a groundbreaking removal of redactions of one of the biggest cases that we have in the past. I guess in the last 4 years, because that's how long this has been going on for.
Right, it's been a while.
Well, technically, it started in like 2006.
Yeah,
wasn't that Epstein's first court was like the early 2000s?
Yeah. So as far as I was aware, yes, but it was like getting Lance Armstrong to confess to using blood transfusions, to cheating in his races. It just took too long.
Right. But yeah, that was what they wanted to focus on. MSNBC wanted to work on $7.8 million in a multi-billion-dollar international real estate company came from foreign governments, which included countries like China and Russia. Their argument, by the way, is that they said that, oh, well, the Republicans are saying this about Biden, about how he enriched, Hunter Biden's business enriched his family. Yeah, here's a big difference. If he took money from China, let's say, I think it was like $5 million, I think was from China, then he was a piss poor, partner in crime to the Chinese, because he filleted them. I mean, think about, like, we'll have China buying rice from us. Remember that back in the day?
Yes.
Like, if he was, like, taking bribes as a president, God, he would be the worst person I would ever want to do business with, because he did not play, like, any kind of game. Like, oh, I'm going to give you money. That means we're going to do better together, right? Yeah, no, fuck off. No, I didn't agree to that at all.
I don't believe that's how it works.
Yeah, correct. So the fact that they're still trying to swing this in that direction is shameful.
I do find it quite fascinating that is what some media outlets are going with as what is considered a more important discussion. I understand with election season coming up that perhaps this might seem more interesting, but I find it interesting when you see a list of people who are on the released documents, and some of them are politicians.
Oh yes,
and perhaps we should get to that now.
Yes, we should.
Okay, so we can't show the document because YouTube will undoubtedly flay us for it. But I do have an article which has a list of people. Trups has gone through 2/3 of the first document, and we thought we'd provide a bit of context while we're doing this to point out that as the article I'm about to put on the screen says, Epstein did in fact kill himself.
Well, yes, certainly that.
No.
But also the important aspect.
That was just something I saw in the article just for a split second.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
The important aspect is that some people here, context is very much important. I can't go to this fucking video. Context is vitally important in this list. And so we are going to go through some of the more notable names, especially with obviously what we've seen on Twitter. So should we just start with with what they put at the top?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well.
Okay, you've got Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine, yes, Giz Maxwell, yeah.
Yes, well, she won't be in a women's prison. Andrew Albert Christian Edwards, or Prince Andrew, Windsor, I guess, who's the second son, thankfully not the king. Can you imagine that? He became the king, and he gets outed for that.
I mean, he was already kind of outed originally, though.
Oh God, do you remember? He said he doesn't sweat while looking like he was sweating during an interview.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad that the Queen was able to pass him along in terms of the royal family.
He's such a dickhead. He has money. Has money. So what does he do? He continues to live the life with the money dwindling very fast. Okay. So then he gets sent to the cottage that Harry and Meghan used to live in, Frogmore. Charles wants to evict him. Charles is allowed to do that. Andrew says no, because he has nowhere to go. Where does he go? And King has lost his patience with this fat dobber. He's doing nothing.
I was going to say, that sounds like not my problem.
Exactly. Andrew, just go get a job at McDonald's and be done with it. You're a bitch. You're a prince in name only, and you shamed your entire family by being an alleged nonce. I say alleged very clearly for a reason, because he did set...
Yeah, I was going to say, alleged is like in the nicest way ever.
But I will say, the fact you financially settled with those accusing you of it does not make you look innocent.
Now, innocent
all.
until proven guilty. So, I mean, even those kind
Sure.
of things are. However,
He settled for millions.
I will say that these depositions don't make it look any better.
I don't think he helped himself during those bloody interviews. Next on the list, Bill Clinton. No one's surprised by this. No one is surprised. We knew he was on the list.
One of the most interesting comments on the deposition regarding Bill Clinton was that Epstein allegedly had said that Bill Clinton, quote, likes him young.
I'd heard that. Yes. I guess it makes sense since his wife is also on here.
I
do think though she's just there by. I think she's just there because her husband was.
I think so too.
So
But that also
acknowledged.
means that like she would have had to. So understanding the family dynamic, right? Chelsea Clinton has got to be going through all, and I mean all, of the therapists. Can you imagine, right? First of all, your father gets basically hailed out in court, says, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, right? Actually goes out, says, no, I didn't do it, gets found out to be having done it, and then implicated in some potential badness at Epstein Island. Not to mention, your entire family line is associated with untimely deaths.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine Chelsea is going through quite a bit of mental issues.
I would
just
actually
dealing with it.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I just want to point out, Stella, you mentioned documentary on Epstein. Oddly enough, this is something we in the UK can relate. The BBC covered up huge amounts of inappropriate behaviour towards children by the likes of Jimmy Savile, of course. Some of Rolf Harris. I say some because he did get before he died, he got the vast majority of what got him put in prison, he got it overturned. So he's still, it wasn't sexual assault, it was the indecency.
Indecent exposure.
No, with a child, indecent something with a child.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just can't remember the exact, but he had he was still a predator of sorts, but he wasn't. Not that we can for a second.
On a scale of terrible people, he was not as terrible as they could have been.
Still terrible, just he's not Savile level, and yet for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And Gary Glitter got done the moment he got done with the context. Gary Glitter had turned his computer in the late 90s. He was early in the 70s. He was a glam rocker. He had a few very big hits, massive in fact. In the 90s,
good name for a glam rock.
Well, his real name's Paul Gadd, so yes, Gary Glitter's better. He turned his computer in to get it repaired, and the tech guy saw thousands. But yes, you were right. The BBC protected these guys because they didn't know how to deal with them. They were famous, and that gave them power. I'm not justifying the BBC here, but what happened with Epstein here seems slightly comparable.
Oh,
that
100%.
That blind eye aspect. The only difference, I guess, is in the case of Savile, he died thinking he was a hero, and Epstein.
What's really curious about that whole these people are being protected by the establishment.
Yeah,
that was one of the entire points, and this was actually in the documentation as well, because one of the interesting questions that somebody had brought up was that some of these girls who were brought on probably didn't know who all of these people were. If you told them, one of the people who was a former governor of New Mexico, who was in the documentation, if you told X person, John Doe is this person, right? They'd be like, oh, that's crazy. You could put any person there and they would just believe that it was John Doe, which allows for a very, very convenient way to say that, oh, the witness is not reliable because they didn't even correctly identify this person.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
just
Right. Well,
people like Bill Clinton, obviously, you'll know.
oh yeah,
right?
we knew from the photos anyway.
Prince Andrew, unfortunately, also one of those people.
The photos don't do him any favors. I should add, obviously, if you're going to have Bill and Hillary, Al Gore is also on the list. But I don't know in what capacity, because I didn't read as much of it as Trups did, and I doubt he remembered as much of it as he would like to.
I honestly, sometimes I wish I could forget. But I don't specifically remember Al Gore's mention, because most of the early 600 pages were talking about Virginia Jeffrey's like deposition and Ghislaine Maxwell's inability to answer a goddamn question.
Shocker. Next on the list, we have... I'll do a couple names. We have David Copperfield. We have Leonardo...
We should mention... Hold on. You are skipping Donald Trump.
I'm not skipping him on purpose. I was going to put a couple names together first.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because if we go down the list and we start skipping...
Trump, you know what? Now you've mentioned Trump, we may as well actually talk about Trump, I guess, because I was going to just do a few other topics and then get to him. But we'll do Trump now. It's quite all right. He's on the list. He has vehemently denied a lot of his connections, or what claimed connections there were with Epstein. Did you read the part of what it said about Trump?
Basically, that Epstein had claimed that he was friends with him.
Yeah.
So that was the majority of where his name was mentioned. Also, there was a mention of Trump Tower at one point, but that was by and large it.
Yeah.
His influence in this case was very minimal in terms of what the stuff actually reported on what Trump's like none of the girls said like, yeah, I was called in to do that with him. No, that was not part of any statement. In the case of a number of people on this list, I can see it being swept under the rug. But when it comes to his name on this list, it doesn't matter the context, because you've already mentioned something where with context it's nowhere near as bad, or bad at all. In fact, this will be weaponized against him. Right. Okay. And now, the only reason why I felt the need to stop you was because if anybody looked back at this and saw us skipping Trump to go on to other people, they would look at us and go, all right, come on now. If someone is that sad that they can't simply be patient, then that just tells me everything I need to know about you as a useless audience member. Because anyone else who actually has a few IQ cells to rub together would have noticed that it was omitted for a reason. True. I felt it was right, because he's like one of those names you want to talk about later. Because now I've got to find a name that might be worth mentioning later, but sadly that's not really likely. We can always go back. Don't worry. Maybe. Okay. Well, next on the list was David Copperfield. I didn't really see it. I don't know what his connection was, but I had. He was at a dinner. Yeah, and he did some magic tricks. Yeah, that's to be fair. That's what I thought it would say anyway. I didn't even know Copperfield was still alive. I thought he got lost in the Bermuda Triangle. The next one on the list that intrigued me. I remember the magic trick from years ago. He did that. Alan Dershowitz, a lawyer who represented Epstein. That's right. Right. That makes sense, because he was in the context of employment. That would actually make sense being mentioned. Whether they were involved in, that's not good. They're kind of screwed regardless. But the one above, so that one actually is very interesting. Yeah, because it does allege that he was part of the terrible actions. Oh, really? And yes, and now he has part of the unredacted components were emails that were going back and forth between Alan Dershowitz regarding his involvement in this situation. Right. And one of the arguments that he had was that they could not acknowledge that Alan had been speaking with Epstein because of attorney-client privilege. And that was one of the arguments that was very common in anything that was mentioned about Alan. Basically, he wanted to distance himself as far away from all of these goings on in the defamation case, that was why he was redacted, because he was not a party, but rather a cursory member. However, in the deposition, there were brief moments where he was at least noticed to be in a location. So his proximity to things that were going on, the reliability of the witness is whatever. It's the reliability of the witness. But he has come out multiple times in multiple interviews, almost thou doth protest too much, a little bit.
Okay, so I just quickly looked at the David Copperfield one. He had dinner with one of the alleged victims at one of his homes and asked if she knew girls were being paid to recruit other girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost like he knew what being involved with these people meant.
That tells me that he was perhaps not connected, really, more trying to...
When I read something like that, it almost makes it sound like, hey, so I've heard things.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true?
Yeah.
Because a person who is fully aware and is partaking in would never ask that question.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so next on the list is the one directly above Alan. John Connolly, a New York police detective turned investigative journalist who investigated Epstein.
I do not know the context in which this person was mentioned.
I don't, so I'm going to quickly Google this one because I'm curious. John Connolly, not Connollet.
This one escapes me.
News. Ex-FBI agent John Zip Connolly, is that him? He is a free man. Well, he was in this picture. He's wearing. You know what? He could. He's been losing bids to clear his name since April of last year. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume this is not. If it is this guy's not a good one. Let's go with that. He's no. I'm gonna no. Okay, next we've got Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, I like in this one, it says here, famous for his roles in Titanic and Inception. That's really interesting because
true.
The one he won his Oscar for isn't mentioned, though. You'd think you'd lead with, you'd include The Revenant. You know, that would make sense.
The poor guy had to do so much to get that, man. He was snubbed from so many Oscars.
And he should have been, it should have been mentioned here. I'm just saying, and I know there are people who have said that based on the time frame, he would have been quite young. Yeah. I can't really say much more beyond that because, it seems like it's a bit of a strange one because I know that people will make a connection with any involvement he had with younger people there, and the fact that this man in his late 40s still has a type for anyone under the age of 25 at oldest.
I mean, that's fair, but like, even so, the actual deposition is question. I saw one press report that said you had met Kate Blanchett or Leonardo DiCaprio. Answer:
Yeah.
I did not meet them. No, when I spoke about them, it was when I was massaging him, and he would. Okay, I'm not going to keep going with that.
Yeah. Well,
then he would get on the phone and say, "Oh, that was Leonardo. That was Kate Blanchett, Bruce Willis." So name dropping.
So
yes,
that's where you got DiCaprio and Cameron Diaz on the list as well.
Yes.
And they both outright deny having any contact with Jeffrey Epstein.
Right. Which, honestly, I'm not going to say fair, but it's very reasonable for somebody in a manipulator point of view, especially with the amount of power that he did flaunt.
Yes.
To make those assertions. To say, like, oh, yeah, I know, all these people, don't cross me, or, hey, I can get you to meet XYZ person because blah, right? But even the deposition states that it was basically a name drop moment. Not like, oh, this person was present or did receive anything from like a victim.
That's fair. Okay.
So who's
next? I'm gonna go with two. Well, let's go with the surprise one. Okay. Dr. Stephen Hawking.
Okay.
Oh, this one tickled me because I saw the memes.
Yes, I did. I did too.
I saw a video of a woman that looked like a literal version of a ditto in a wheelchair with someone dancing around her. A ditto trying to transform into a human, that is.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I really wanted just to retweet it with the ditto. It's all I wanted to do, but then I realised I have to be so careful because I know I might annoy. I've only just hit 10k followers on Twitter. I don't want to lose them already. And I've got to be a bit careful for the time being. This one surprised me because it's Stephen Hawking.
So the context for this one is very odd. So
it is
according to this this article, in the typo-ridden email, Epstein tells Maxwell to offer to pay anyone for information disproving a purported allegation from the Epstein accuser, Virginia Giuffre, that Hawking was part of an underage party with intercourse.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck that is about, okay? Like that is the weirdest statement,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's Hawking surprised me. But the next name didn't, but I will admit the memes cracked me to no end, especially the pedantic pricks who got destroyed for realizing their errors once people corrected them enough. And that was the king of, white skin, Michael Jackson, who, I mean, come on, every celebrity in Hollywood for years mocked him and said he was a nonce, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was found innocent in one of his last cases, and that was a huge moment for him. And I know he had settled another case many years earlier. He was almost bankrupt at that point, I believe, when he died.
Yeah.
And I remember all of that.
Was that like 2008?
Yeah.
Remember that?
He had...
When he passed away?
Yeah, and people were tweeting that, that Michael Jackson's not on the list. He's been vindicated. All these other celebrities, though, calling it... And it was a meme. It was a copy-paste. People were replying to this with, but he's on the list. And the replies are the same. You're fucking stupid, aren't you? You're actually stupid.
Yes.
It's the point. It was like Keemstar had tweeted one putting Boogie on the list. It was an obvious joke. Come on. He had to then add an addition later so Boogie wouldn't sue him, saying, obviously it's a joke, you know. But Michael Jackson, I'll be honest, I thought he would actually be on the list. I thought he would be. No offense to him.
Yeah.
But while in the ballpark of names that I kind of thought would be there, even though I thought he would have thrown most of it out, most of the cases against him have been thrown out or he's been found innocent of, Kevin Spacey. Now,
okay, so this has been an odd scenario going forward because of Kevin Spacey's on and off like public comments and where he's going.
Yeah.
Because he had released a video for Christmas again this year after he got out on parole or whatever the fuck it was.
Well, he's not out on parole, is he? He's not been arrested, has he?
Oh, that's right. Everything was either every accuser died mysteriously, or
he was found not guilty of a whole slew of them. I know there are. I think there are
or
still
that
some
one. Yeah, or the charges were dropped.
I think some were thrown out because there wasn't enough to work with. Others couldn't pursue it any further because they just didn't have any evidence, or he was found not guilty. I know there might be some still ongoing, but I just the man is the Christmas video. It wasn't the House of Cards character again, was it? Frank Underwood. He did that once. He did a character after one of the trials.
That's
and
right.
It was the weirdest video I had seen.
Yeah, it was a poor decision because Frank was a very duplicitous.
I loved it. I loved House of Cards, man. I loved it.
Oh no, I love the character, but it was just bad timing.
Oh yeah, the optics of it
was creepy as fuck.
Oh yeah, he nails it though. That's the point. He nails voice acting really well. He does a fantastic Jack Nicholson. It's a great video on YouTube of him doing that in front of Jack Nicholson of all people.
That's amazing.
It's really funny. It's really good. But he's on the list, and I kind of expected him to be on the list. Yeah. But I'm now gonna mention George Lucas though, because he was on the list. So was Trump. But the person who mentioned Lucas and Trump did say when they were questioned, and it's in the document, did they ever meet George Lucas? No. Did they ever meet Donald Trump? No. That's what the victim Johanna Schoberg said when questioned. Never met Lucas, never met Trump. And people appearing on this list, right, it doesn't mean that an individual was involved with or aware of Epstein's behavior. And that's why people like Copperfield, Campbell, Diaz, and even Jackson, there's a claim that he didn't know about any of it. It's having been involved in or having met or engaged with Epstein, or claims from Epstein that now can't be verified by Epstein because he is no longer with us, unless we got a Ouija board.
Yes, Quidja. Help Quidja.
Yeah, much Quidja. It's important to point out because there are a lot of names on this list. I could make a really crass joke about Willis. Obviously, he can't really say much now, but I'm not going to make that joke because I like Bruce Willis. And yes, I did watch Die Hard over Christmas multiple times.
Is it a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course it is.
I wanted to ask because it is an ongoing question.
So is Gremlins.
True. Arguably anything that has Christmas in it is a Christmas movie.
My brother-in-law has a Christmas figurine of a gremlin, and I fully endorse it being out in public. Quite frankly, and if anyone wants to disagree with me, I will fight you. So
now, for reference, the context in which the context in which Kevin Spacey, ironically Chris Tucker,
really.
The context in which they were mentioned, was an instance where they said the first entry has President Clinton, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Jeffrey Epstein's, and the initials GM. Do you remember taking a trip with President Clinton during September of 2002? Maxwell responded with, "I don't remember the dates. I couldn't testify to when we actually did it, but I do remember the trip itself."
Okay.
So that was the context in which Spacey was implicated. Basically, took a trip on the plane.
I'll be honest.
That can mean anything. I want to point out.
I'd said on Twitch that if your name's on this list, unless people are willing to actually look at the context, the more casual person is going to want nothing to do with you. Straight up, your career is done. But
they're going to ask you everything.
Yeah, which is understandable. The casual person is going to do that, whereas somebody else might look at it and go, okay, nothing to do with it. In the case of Kevin Spacey, though, his career is still in the stage of being fucked because of things like, was it Me Too that got him?
Yeah, it was a whole bunch of stuff along the same lines as Weinstein. And
since most of it, if not all of it, has been destroyed, his career can't be... No one ever... People did listen and believe his... I mean, they did an extra series of House of Cards, and it's the only one on DVD I don't own, because they killed the show with that. It's so bad. And no one stood up for him. They just listened and believed because of optics. And this mentality will apply here if you're on the wrong side of history, in the minds of others, that is. It depends on who's willing to weaponize it first.
True.
Okay.
True.
So, another name I thought was quite fascinating, you had Noam Chomsky. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
True, actually.
I was kind of thrown by that, but more than I was any of the actors or who was it? Marvin Minsky. I have no idea who the artificial intelligence pioneer is. I don't know anything about that at all. You know, it's not something I really cared about, and I didn't bother. I saw Noam Chomsky's name. I didn't look at the context. I do apologize to those listening. That wasn't remotely interesting. I'm
trying to look right now.
Yeah.
for that one in particular. Let's see, Gnome
Yeah.
Chomsky. Weird. Let's see, key takeaways. Gnome. According to the documents, Epstein arranged multiple meetings with Noam Chomsky in 2015, 2016. Chomsky was teaching at MIT, where Epstein had made significant donations. Chomsky took a flight, allegedly on Epstein's private jet, to New York.
That's it.
One specific event included a dinner at Epstein's townhouse with film director Woody Allen and his wife, Soon Yi.
Ah, Woody Allen. Isn't Woody Allen on this list?
Yes.
Okay. Woody Allen should be further up this list that we're getting here. And I'm a bit surprised on that one, because Woody Allen doesn't surprise me at all. I like Woody Allen's work, but there have been many accusations over the years levied at Woody.
Okay.
I vaguely remember an accusation that didn't he raise the very person he's now married to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that reeks of weird.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to see what was the other ones. Nope, that's just those. Okay.
And by the way, don't do Chris Tucker dirty. He was also in that movie with Bruce Willis and that really skinny bitch from the Resident
I
Evil
love
movies.
Chris Tucker.
Yeah, Chris Tucker is an amazing. He was in. What's the film called? The one with Chris Tucker and Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich. It's really he
Fifth
plays.
Element. Fifth
Yeah,
Element.
he has that ridiculous wig on, the outfit. He looks amazing with his squeaky voice. It's just brilliant.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Actually, sounding pretty close.
Okay.
How bad do your balls hurt doing that?
Not as bad as my throat.
Oh, that's understandable. It's a good movie, that. Shame I couldn't remember the
great
name of it. I'm terrible.
Okay, Fifth Element's a very good movie. And by very good, I mean a solid B movie that you watch when it's raining outside.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah. Okay. So there are a lot of people who are mentioned in this list that are doctors that have treated people like Virginia Roberts. You have people that worked for Epstein. Those people are to be expected on this list, right?
Yep. Yep.
What was the context for this being released in the first place? And actually, wasn't it supposed to have been released a little bit earlier?
Yes, and actually that's why we are having a rollout of multiple documents. At first, this was going to be an all provided, an expose, if you will.
Yeah, I'm just trying to point out. Somebody, when this all got released, some things were still redacted, and somebody sent me all the redacted pages. Well, I got fucking loads of just redacted pages. I was like, honestly, I'd get more information from wiping toilet paper on mold. Honestly, like seriously, I got all I could tell was someone might have written a sentence.
Oh my god, there are still pages in the first set of documents. There was still like 4 or 5 pages that were just completely black. Like like, oh, they blacked out some like sentences. Oh. No. The whole page. Like the header was the only thing that you had.
That would imply an image, wouldn't it? Now, I got all the sentence ones. I was like, who went to the effort to go into Paint and just do those lines? Like, come on. Who was the silly bitch who did that?
Now, yes, okay, so context-wise, Epstein was a financier, right? His whole shtick, his whole thing was that he would provide funding for people, and then he would also manage their assets, right?
Oh.
That was his job. Him providing donations to MIT, to hospitals, to different organizations, that was very common for him. As Stella H. writes in the chat, Epstein was really big into parties, fundraising. Yes, very true. These are all very, very true statements. So it is very possible that like the cursory people that are mentioned, but like not actually like, oh, I went and did a massage for such and such. They might not have anything to do with this, but as Meg has pointed out several times, it doesn't really matter because you're kind of screwed.
Optics are not on your side, and this is where I'm intrigued by the media response, because these are being released and we're seeing it in the UK, and people are going through them, and they're paying attention. Trump's name's been mentioned. but it hasn't been given that kind of coverage of let's vilify for him being on the list. No, some are just going into a bit of bias and just saying, well, he's on the list. Of course he is. He's a nonce. That's not the truth, though, is it? You've got to...
No, it's opinion.
Exactly.
Well, they can't be sued for defamation.
Very true. But you have names on here that are being mocked to high hell. Hawking is the obvious one. Because what was said is hilarious.
Also, something about midgets and a too high up chalkboard.
Yes, I
don't know if you saw that, but somebody mentioned it in the chat, and I felt the need to mention it.
I saw it on Twitter. My Twitter feed for a while had mostly been thoughts doing a renaissance, and this week it's just been.
Say thoughts?
Yeah, I said thoughts. THOTS. They were making.
I thought I was going insane for a second. I'm like, what? Hello?
Yeah, I wasn't talking about that idea for an avatar that never came to light. No, Thoth. I instead was going with yes,
don't. How dare you?
You remember. Yeah, but yeah, I saw this and I cried with laughter. I don't like the idea of doing Hawking dirty, but mate, Twitter doesn't give a shit.
No one gives a shit. He's dead.
True. That's another thing, like with Jackson featuring, many just rolled their eyes and go, big shocker, who cares? But then also his connection isn't actually, it isn't as in depth as just see his name and immediately go, well, shocker. Actually, with a bit of critical thought, you realise it's not quite what you think. I just think, yeah. Running defence for Andrew, no?
Whomst?
The British media are very much like, well, looky here. The British media right now are pillorying this stupid, lazy prick who should, quite frankly, be King Charles needs to excommunicate this fat fuck. Like, he needs to outright oust him from Frogmore and tell him to go live in some swamp. Hide him somewhere.
Maybe that's where he deserves to be.
Hide him somewhere where no one will ever think to look. The Tower of fucking London would be a great start.
Isn't that a prison?
I mean, we can use one of the parts of it as one and use them as a showcase.
I forget, honestly, because it's not my country.
Just stick him somewhere where no one would ever think to look. I know, under a car park next to a Burger King. Or stick him. Now, we do have it in this country. We have a prison inside a prison for one man. There's only one man in the United Kingdom who exists within a prison under a prison. His name is Robert Maudsley. Now, this prison is built underneath a prison, and he exists within a completely, like Magneto cell in the X-Men movies.
That's amazing.
The clear plastic. He exists in something like that, and he exists in that every single day because he ate some people. I'm not suggesting we put Andrew in one of those, but I am totally okay with him having one of those instead. Just with a slightly more comfortable bed.
That's actually... You know what? It actually just reminded me... What is it? Silence of the Lambs with Anthony Hopkins?
Yeah.
With the mask? That's all I could imagine when you said, like, this person... I was thinking of the plastic thing, like, luminescent, like, fluorescent lights just in this room. He's just in a straitjacket and a mask, just staring at everybody who walks in.
Honestly, he shouldn't open his mouth. You see how out of touch he is. By the way...
No, I don't know who this person is, really.
Oh, well, Prince Andrew.
No, the other guy who's in Max prison.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, Robert Maudsley.
Yeah, that's fucking creepy, dude. I never knew that existed, and that's honestly.
I was gonna do a true crime video.
Time check.
It would nearly an hour. We'll probably finish soon.
We can just go quickly. I
was gonna do a true crime video on Robert Maudsley, and I just remembered his name because I've got sources on him still. Someone in the chat mentioned he should work at Matalan, Prince Andrew. No, bitch. Not you, bitch. Prince Andrew, the bitch, should work at a TK Maxx in Wales. Honestly, hide him somewhere where no one will think to look. Just hide him in a TK Maxx. It's a really crappy shop. Okay.
I was gonna say, like, is it like TJ Maxx in America? Like,
I don't know. Actually, you know what? Let's hide him in a shop you'll understand. Hide him in a Morrison's, which I believe is owned by Walmart. There you go.
Okay. Or
is it the other one, Asda? No, it's Morrison's, I think. Yes. Yes. So one of the things we discussed before we went online was that a lot of the names on this are only mentioned because they used the jet, only mentioned because they received funding, but not because of actually having any definitive involvement with Epstein. Yet they are still going to have to answer in some manner somewhere to essentially clear their name. I'm air quoting that because they have to say something. Some are refusing, and understandably so. But in the context of optics, you really don't have in the wider, oh, TJ and TK are the same. Nice.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Very good. Well, yes, then in that case, you're working at TK Maxx or TJ Maxx. Either way, the optics do not help you if you don't say anything, but if you do and point out what it said. In the UK, we are looking at this, and people are outright saying, okay, well, these people, they're mentioned, but to be honest, they're kind of cleared. Whereas that's not how other countries react. And that's going to be a problem in your country with election season with names on here. It's going to be a problem when it comes to others who are, let's say, well known for former presidents that are on there and have denied involvement, yet are outright named in a rather nasty way.
Right. Now, I mean, there's a list of like the people who were specifically mentioned of like people who did get massages. People like John Luke Brunel,
Yeah.
Bill Richardson, Leslie Wexner, Glenn Dubin, Alan Dershowitz, Marvin Minsky. Those people were some of the individuals who were specifically made said to have been receivers of some sort of service. I hate using that word.
Well, it's the best way of doing it. I'm not going to appeal monetization on this one. It's not getting through. We know that. It's a very interesting time. I know documents 2 and 3 have now been released, and so we've only got, that's just the first one. We have not seen part 2 or 3 yet, and I am very interested to see how that plays out. Of course I am. But that might not be next week, because it depends on how the media handle. The next week is going to be fascinating, because in my country they're going through it. They really are, and they're destroying Andrew. And it's going to put King Charles on the spot. He is going to have to do something. He has no choice. Much like removing the prince from Harry's name and simply calling him the Duke, I think he'll have to do something with Andrew as well and really relegate the prick. I feel sorry for him because he's got 2 wonderful children who have done really well with their lives, and that their names are kind of associated with his stupidity. In the form of Princess Beatrice and Eugenie. Both of them have done really well for themselves, just a sense.
Well, it's one of those things where you try to distance yourself as far as you can.
Yes. And I do hope they succeed because,
Yep. But other than that, we have hit a time restriction on our stream there.
You are right. Mr. TrupsLP has to do things. I have to sleep. This will be up on Spotify and Rumble, as I earlier stated in the stream, tomorrow, as I have to do some stuff on the computer anyway. Are we here next week, Trups?
I believe so.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I think so.
That's good. A few days before my birthday, Mr. Bay Dave will be here, so I'll tell him to shut the fuck up. Should be fun. Very well. Do hope to see you all then. Thank you for joining us, people, more than usual. We really appreciate it. If there is more that comes to light or more happens, of course we're going to cover it. And it's more than likely I'm going to blast the Prince because I have to. Quite frankly, I want to blast him, but I can't do it in video form because YouTube will demonetize it like they will this stream. Don't forget to smash the like. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Say goodnight, Trups.
Good night, Trups.
Good night, Trups.